Howdy y'all, welcome to History by Phillips. I'm Mr. Phillips. This is going to be a review over the American Revolution lecture series. In that series was a 4-part video, pretty much broke down by a lesson. Let's do a quick review of it real quick. Some of you students, you still got to do your essays for this week. And we're about to go into fall break. On fall break, enjoy it, relax, don't worry about it. We have a little novel you got to read. It's taking no time at all. But other than that, enjoy fall break. Relax, recharge those batteries. While you're doing that, I'm going to be figuring out this Edmonton stuff. I know a lot of folks are getting locked out tests. It's just a lot of stuff I got to work out on myself with that. After fall break, it should be all hunky-dory. Other than that, football games tonight. I know Cotton County going to Cherokee to play tonight. Cosby, I'm sure they got a game. Good luck to both teams. Trying to think what else. Yeah, hopefully everybody's doing well. Let's get into it. We'll talk about the review. So the first lesson, we talked about the War for Independence. Pretty much the war kicked off. The Second Continental Congress got together. They made George Washington the leader of the Continental Army. Particular because he's from a well-known family from Virginia. Virginia is like a big powerhouse in the colony. So Washington gets named to the Continental or to the General of the Continental Army, the brand new army. And the war kicks off. The first fighting will happen at Lexington and Concord. The shot heard around the world. Emerson would romanticize that. What he meant by that is how dare these people take on the big, mighty British Empire. Because remember, at the time, Britain's military is the best. That's the big thing you need to know. Yes, the Patriots had early successes like Lexington, Concord, Breeds Hill, and Bunker Hill. I know they're considered losses because they lost the ground, but they inflicted heavy casualties on Britain and embarrassed them on a global scale. So the big takeaway from lesson one is Britain's military is the best. The Army's the best. The Navy's the best. Most well trained, best equipped. Experience, that's the big thing, experience. They've been fighting wars forever and they know what they're doing. While on the other hand, the Americans, the Patriots, they're having to start from scratch and make a brand new army. You got to think about what your uniform's going to look like. You got to think about feeding all these soldiers. You got to enlist these soldiers. How long are these soldiers going to be under contract for? How much are you going to pay them? Feed them. You got to move these folks. How you going to move? How you going to move an army around? You got horses, carry. Like how you going to do all this stuff? That's what the Continental Congress is having to figure out. In the next lesson, we talk about how the war continues. Basically, King George got embarrassed for a little bit from Bunker Hill, Boston, all that kind of stuff. So King George sends in pretty much, not the entirety of the British military, but sends in a good part with a lot of mercenaries, about 30,000 Hessians. They're from what you recognize as Germany. He sends in all these soldiers. He's going to put an end to this rebellion, and he almost does it. Remember Valley Forge. Valley Forge is right outside Philadelphia. Think of Philadelphia as like Washington D.C. is today. Back then, Philadelphia was like their capital. It was the capital. I mean, it was their place. They marched in. They took it over. That'd be like if somebody came in and took over Washington D.C. from us today. I mean, well, it is in a bad spot. That bad spot was Valley Forge. So close. I just dropped my mouse. So close to the hopes for an independent nation snubbed out in this winter. George Washington's camped out there with them. Snow. They don't have food. They don't have blankets, proper shelter to stay. A lot of soldiers are getting frostbite. They're dying of illness. A lot of soldiers are saying, "Screw this, ain't worth it." You have a lot of desertion going on. George Washington's losing his army. It's bad. But the big thing is the reason why we stay in the fight is because we make allies. That is the big thing. Without allies, the Patriots wouldn't have an independent nation. So many allies. I know this is considered an American victory, but that American victory needs to be realized as is pretty much a team effort. You had Spain, you had France, various European countries, Latin American countries, all sorts of folks. Because they was inspired by the ideas of freedom and liberty and what they actually meant to the individual as a citizen. but we'd be making allies. Two big ones that you need to make note of is France. France's military has nothing to shake a stick at either. I know I keep bragging about how Britain's military is the best, but France is right up there with them. Napoleon's about to make an appearance in history here. Napoleon will wreak havoc all over Europe. But Napoleon, well, not Napoleon yet, but France will come help us out in Spain. Because remember, let's see if I can get drop my mouse again. The British plan of attack was to control. Sorry about the announcements here.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. We've got breakfast ready down in the lobby if you want to come by.
Yeah, we got announcements. Sorry about that. Remote teacher problems, I guess you can call.
Also, we will meet.
I'm gonna keep rambling while it's going on because I don't think I'm gonna
ready.
really
Probably
hear
around
announcements.
9:15.
But anyway, remember the British strategy. It was pretty much control New England because remember old Boston. Boston was the rebellious spot because typically the further south you went, the more loyalist support you had. So like they could, didn't really bother them. So they had this blockade going. You couldn't get anything in and out. Pretty much we had to rely on smugglers and pirates. One person make note of, John Paul Jones. Crazy dude, more loony than George Washington. You remember George Washington convinced a bunch of soldiers to cross the Nassau River, march a bunch of miles to capture a city. This dude, Jerry rigged his little merchant boat, took on a warship in England, goes toward England, harasses them. Crazy. But anyway, you have the British blockade going on. Eventually, France's Navy will come in, help us out. But let's talk about the battleground start shifting. After Valley Forge is typically considered like a 180 force because one person that helped us out quite a bit is von Steuben. Frederick von Steuben, if you remember him, he pretty much laid out, pretty much wrote the manual how to train an army for the United States. They wasn't all about fighting and stuff like that. Yes, he implemented bayonet training, but it's more like, hey, you need to brush your teeth every day, wash behind your ears, use the bathroom away from where you eat, just simple things like that. The Army starts becoming more effective, but also toward the later end of the war, the fighting in the West. What I mean by the West is the Appalachian Mountains that typically involved a lot of Indian allies with the British. Brutal fighting, you call it guerrilla tactics, hit and run tactics. A lot of atrocities on both sides. War's ugly. That's how it goes. And fighting in the South. So remember, like I said, I don't know if you can. That one? That one. Alright, there we go. Remember, in the South, typically, like, from down in here, it's loyalist support. I mean, they care less about the war, so and so, but Britain starts flooding in their troops here. They start violating their rights, so quartering troops, search and seizures, all that kind of stuff. It makes the Southerners angry. And they pretty much start, it's like, hey, don't get involved in the war, or we'll beat you up. That's just what you don't do to these folks. Because these folks have already lived west of the Appalachian. They could care less about that proclamation law. They usually don't challenge them to a fight, so they came and started fighting them. They started whooping them. With Lafayette, the Continental Army, they had some militias. One militias to make note of is the Overmountain Men from the Watauga, Northeast Tennessee, East Tennessee region, known as Carolina at the time. But those men, but you have Lafayette, and this brings us into the last lesson. Pretty much you have Lafayette and these Southern militias. They're whooping up on the British in the South. Well, you have George Washington up here in New York. Essentially, they'll make General Cornwallis retreat back to Yorktown, Virginia. This is the British hold this at the time. He's going to come back. It's like he's taking a moment to breathe or something. It's like halftime for him. He's like just getting his wits about him. Well, unbeknownst to him, Lafayette and these Southern militias, they're closing in on him. They're closing in quick on him. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to Cornwallis, you have the French Navy coming in as well from the sea. And George Washington, he's playing possum up here with some other British general he's fighting. But eventually, he's going to give him the runaround and head straight to Virginia, from New York to Virginia. They're going to catch General Cornwallis off guard, trapped. He has no choice but to surrender. The war is officially over. There are some still skirmishes that happen, but that's because word takes a while to get there because remember they don't have cell phones. They can be like, "Hey, war's over." I mean, they still have to rely on somebody writing it on a piece of paper, hand delivering it across the country. So, but anyways, the war is over. And Yorktown is officially over with the Treaty of Paris of 1783. The United States is officially recognized as an independent nation by Britain and other European countries. George Washington becomes a big hero. I mean, he's fought in the French and Indian War. He's been a prisoner of war. He's been with his soldiers on Christmas night crossing icy rivers and taking over cities. He's been in battles with them. Rumor has it, one battle he had 4 bullet marks in his coat, but never got touched. Had horses shot out from under him. This man's became a legend. He's up there with Ben Franklin, celebrity status. He'll end up riding his fame to the presidency. But that's it for the American Revolution. What I'd like to leave you with, or ask you is, why did the Patriots win the American Revolution? What were some reasons? I mean, we talked about some allies, the ideas of freedom, maybe. What ideas might that be? Who helped us out? We know we got France and like Lafayette, the von Steuben, Marquez, Rochambeau, Spain. You got so many folks that helped us out. Plus, what the British were doing, violating rights. Like, big ones for me would be quartering soldiers. I wouldn't like to have somebody like let them eat on my food and sleep in my bed and stuff. That'd make me mad personally. But, you know, no taxation without representation. That's a big one. But the ideas of government start forming here in America, and we're about to expand on that in the next series. The United States government starts taking shape in the structure of it. That's it. That's all I can think of. Thank you for watching the series. It's been History by Phillips. I've been Mr. Phillips. I'll be going live to study block today. I'm going to try to do that by 1 o'clock today because we get off early, so I'm going to try to do that at 1 o'clock. But until then, everybody take care. Peace.